Hi guys, so this video is the first part in a series about building our own personal cloud storage service, and I'm going to run through building the backend API. So this video will cover the uploading, the storing and the downloading of the files in Node. So as you can see in front of you now, the first thing that I've already done is I kind of scaffolded out the basic server. So if you're familiar with Node, obviously I don't need to run through this really for you, but if you're not, I'm just going to quickly cover this file. Up at the top here, we have our included packages. So what we've got is we've got Express, which is going to handle the URLs and handle the endpoints of the API. So the actual requests as they come in from the end users, they're going to handle by Express. Morgan is just a quick, simple library. What it's going to do for us is just output to the screen whenever we get requests. So you can see down here, I'm using it in development mode. The production mode differs from the development mode in that it logs kind of the IP address and some more basic information about the requests that's coming in, the date, timestamp, and all that stuff that we really don't care about in development. Sorry, it's not really essential to us, so we just want basic output logging just to check that requests are working. After that, we've got body parser, and so what body parser is going to do is it's going to process the requests as they arrive, convert them to JSON, put them into an appropriate format that can be handled by Express. And then the last one that we've got here is busboy. So what busboy is going to do is busboy is going to handle the actual upload of the files. So when they're received by our request, it's going to extract them from the request and then put them into a nice set of functions for us to use so we can quickly access our files once they've been received by the server. The only instance where we use busboy in the core of this server here is we just want to set the watermark. So what that's going to do is just set the file maximum size. In my case, I've set it to 2 GB. There's absolutely no need to do it. You don't need to set one at all. But for my own personal use, I don't really intend to upload any files bigger than 2 GB. So if I do get a file bigger than that, I can kind of assume something's gone wrong. That can be upped, it can be downed, or yeah, you can just remove it altogether. So the next section that we move on to then is we have the roots. So all of my roots, I'm using the preface of API with them. So that means anytime you type in the URL, you're gonna have to go to HTTP, localhost, we're gonna go port 888, and then we're gonna do /API, and then get file or whatever it's going to be. And the reason for that is it just helps with the differentiation between the API endpoint and the front end, especially they both run on localhost, they're on the same port on the end production server. It's also handy for versioning your API in the future, so you can have API /1, 2, 3, but once again, it's not necessary. I just like to have it in there. It helps me differentiate between the two. So as you can see here, I'm storing the roots in a separate file as well. Just to keep the file structure relatively simple and stop this one file becoming massive and overcomplicated and bloated for no particular reason. It helps with the maintenance of the project as well in the future. And then the very last thing that we're doing here is we're just kind of kicking off the server and we're telling it to start listening. So what we're doing here is we're telling it to start listening on port 8888. And once again, no fixed reason why I picked that port. It's just my favorite port to run my APIs on. So there's one last thing that I've changed here, and that's in the package.json file. I've just removed the test line and replaced it with a serve command using nodemon. So nodemon is another package that you can install if you want to, and that's just going to perform hot reloading of the server. So basically I don't have to keep recompiling every time I make a small change. It's going to do it for us automatically. So that's just telling nodemon to use the hot reloading and keep looking at the index.js file, which is kind of the main file it's being told to point at, which is the file we were just looking at. So if we were to try and run it now, we would, use npm run serve there, we will get an error because we have a file that doesn't exist. So we're telling it to look in the root main, and root main doesn't exist at this current point. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to kill the server there. Get rid of that terminal out of the way. And then we're going to come up here and create a new folder. I'm going to call it roots, and then in there we just want the one file. We're just going to call it main.js. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do then in our roots file is we just want to go ahead and instantiate a new router. So we just want to require express router, okay, and then we can go ahead and create the first root. So I'm just going to create a sample root that we'll always keep here, and the purpose of it is just to check. It will allow us to check that the server is actually working and it's handling requests properly. Because once we get to a later stage and we're kind of passing out into separate files again to handle the controlling of these routes, it can get complicated to kind of trace what errors are actually occurring. So if we have one endpoint that we just always know is just right there, it's going to fire quickly, it'll help with debugging any errors. And we can also use it as kind of a testing point for the front end as well, just to check that the two can communicate and can throw errors and stuff if that occurs. So what we want to do at that point is just want to return a status, status of 200 with a quick JSON message. And we just want to say the server working. So a very quick little test just to verify that everything's up. So we can check that in Postman. Let's pull it over here. So we just want to perform a GET request to our local host to port 8888 and then our /API. However, this won't work because the server is not running. So we're trying to do npm run serve. Okay, so this error is because I've forgotten one line at the end of the file, which is going to be module.exports equals router. So we're not actually exporting the router there, so the router in theory doesn't technically exist. So now it does. We can see it's hot reloaded for us and the package is up and ready, everything's alive and working. So we can jump back into Postman and we can just check that this is working just with our GET request to localhost and just send that. And then we get the request back. That's with our data and our message. And we can see here at the bottom, Morgan has logged for us that request as it arrived. So we've just got very basic information about it. Okay, so with that working, we can go ahead and create a new folder just at the root of the directory again and call it controllers. And in here, we just want to create one file. I'm just going to name it upload.js. This file will be responsible for handling all of the file upload functionality. So when files are uploaded to a specific endpoint that we'll create in a minute on our routes folder, they'll be handled by this particular function. So the way we want to set this up is we just want to say exports new file. Just want to create a new function with a request and a response. And then in here, the first thing that we want to do is we just want to kind of, oopsie daisies, we just kind of want to instantiate busboy. So we're just going to create a new busboy. We're going to give it the headers from the actual request header. So it's going to look in the request headers and extract the relevant information that it needs to perform the parsing. And as I'm sure you're aware, that what I forgot to do is include busboy itself. So we're just going to require busboy. And change that one to a capital B. Great, so busboy provides us with some handy functionality. So we have file and we have finish. There are plenty of functions that are provided, but these are the kind of the only ones that we're going to be needing for this particular project. So to get started, we want to use busboy on file. So what this means is every time you receive a file, this function will be executed. And this can be handy in the future for when we have kind of lots of files that we want to upload at one time, for example. Yeah, this will be kind of a great help to us. So in terms of error handling here, I'm going to keep it relatively simple. So since I'm not using any kind of database for managing records here, I'm just going to be checking and polling the actual operating system itself and seeing if a file exists that has the same file name. Then we want to return to the user an error just saying, the file already exists. If you were so inclined, you could create a more complicated version here and use some kind of hash-based checking and see if the file already exists. Just so you're not wasting everybody's time really by uploading the same file twice. Or you can remove it completely and just overwrite the file. Yes, so to do that we just want to write a simple if statement. So we just want to say if exists sync. So we're just going to synchronously check with the operating system whether the file already exists. And I'm going to be storing them in a folder called datum. And we're going to be checking for file name. So I'll write this quickly and then we'll run over what it actually does. So we're going to return 400. And we just want to pass it an error, and we just want to say file already exists. Okay, so we're checking synchronously with the operating system, meaning in real time. We're not going to run this as a background task, meaning nothing else will be executed until this if statement has been run. So we just want to return a quick message to the user just saying the file already exists. So, no need to proceed, we'll terminate that. Otherwise, what we want to do is we want to go ahead and we're going to create a new, what I'm going to call the location, which will be the same as that above path. So we just want the datum folder and then the file name. So I'll write these next 2 lines and then we'll read back over them and kind of, I'll explain what the purpose of them is. So we want to create a new write stream, store in location. So what's happening here is we're creating a new write stream and then we're piping the content of the file into, we're piping the content of the write stream into the file we just created. So a great way to think of this is to kind of think of jam donuts. The way a jam donut is filled, I'm sure you're aware, is you take a syringe, you fill it with jam, you stick it into the donut until it's completely full. The write stream you can think of here as kind of the exterior of the donut, and the pipe command, the syringe, the stream being the jam in the middle. Once it's completely full, it stops, the file is full. So instead of a syringe, we have a pipe stream. Instead of jam, we have a stream of bytes, but it's the same logic. So really, that's all that's necessary in order to extract the file from the request as they're coming in and populate it into a file. And then once the content of the file has been stored, we just want to go ahead and finish. So again, busboy provides us a nice little function here. The purpose of this is it would be helpful because you can have multiple files here that are uploaded at one time. Then this function will be kind of recurrently executed with each of the files that occur. So once all of those are finished, we just want to go ahead and return a status to the user. Oops. I return a response with a status of 200 to the user, just letting them know that their request was handled successfully. So I'm just going to say files uploaded. So once again, if we just try and run it, we would encounter 2 errors, I believe, at this point. So the first one, I'm sure you've already noticed, I'm using the file system module, but I've not actually included it yet. So we're just going to do fs require, fs up at the top, and that's just going to include the file system and allow us to manipulate it. The second is we're trying to talk to a folder again called datum. This folder at the minute doesn't exist. So at the root of our project, we're going to create a new folder, which we want to call it datum. So all of our files that are uploaded are going to be stored here. Okay, so once again, we now need to jump into the root and actually create the root for this. So what we can do is we can just say router post. So again, it's going to be a post method since we're passing data into the server at this point. And we're going to post to, we're just going to call it file. And then that's going to be handled by, I'm just going to write upload new file. So at the minute, upload doesn't exist. So let's go up to the top and create that. So we're going to do upload. We're going to require come out of directory, into controllers, and then upload. So that's the file and the function that we just created over here. So anything that's posted to the endpoint file is going to be handled by the new file function of the upload file, which is what we've written here. So we can test that now by jumping over into Postman, and we can say API file. You can just change that over to a post request, and if we jump into body over here, so you just want to go ahead and select your file. I'm using a sample executable file, but really any file type would work. Even file types without an extension, if you're not on a Windows-based system, for example, will work perfectly fine. So we just want to click open on that, make sure that's entered here. We have our endpoint, we have our post command. Let's send it. Okay, so that one's on me. The request didn't actually finalize then, because we've forgotten one key crucial thing to add on the bottom here. So firstly, in the finish, we don't want to actually return yet. Busboy will handle the return for us. What we want to write at the end is we just want to pipe into the request, the busboy. So this runs through the entire function and then performs the actual piping of the request through to busboy itself. And then that is handled with the returning the response to the end user. So now we can jump back over to Postman. Still, we've got our sample file uploaded here. We've got our endpoint and we're posting to it. So we can click send on that. And then, as I'm sure you've all already noticed, a lot quicker than me, we wrote false here instead of FS. So quick fix, no problem at all. Run back over, run the request, and we can see that our file has been uploaded. We can see Morgan's login for us, a successful request again, and if we look up in the top, in the datum folder, we can see we have a new file, that's sample.exe, which is the file we've just uploaded. So wonderful, everything works, great. So there you have the functionality necessary to handle file uploads in Node. In the next part, we'll be covering retrieving the files you uploaded and some user management, and then moving forward into later parts of this series, I'll be covering building a front end that consumes the API. All of the code can be found on my GitHub, so it's a project named mdrive. I'll pop a link in the description below. And if you're interested in a written version of this article as well, I have a written version on Medium, and again, I'll place I'll place a link to the article down below. So thanks guys, and I'll see you next time.